Hi and welcome to TMI Simulation Solutions webinar series, in which we will discuss with experts in the maritime industry the future of shipping. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic created new norms, presenting new growth opportunities, incorporating the fourth industrial revolution, technologies in sensing, automation, robotics, and communication. In this webinar, we will discuss what is transport resilience in ports and the benefits of an intelligent port ecosystem. In this session, TMI will have the honor of collaborating with Arup to discuss what is resilience and its relevance in our current COVID pandemic environment. Can resilience allow your organization to adapt to changing conditions and recover positively from shocks and stresses? Experts say that future ports are the ports that will survive, but what would be the strategies to use digital technologies within the port areas to become competitive, resilient, and green? I would like to first introduce our speakers of the day. I'm very honored and thankful for Arup's team to accompany us. Our first speaker is Mark Button, Senior Engineer at Arup. Hey, Mark.
Hi, good morning. Good to join everyone today. Shall I make a start on the presentation now?
No, I would just want to give the introduction and introduce you to our audience. Just a second. So Mark works for the design and advisory of ports and the coast with a focus on decarbonization and resilience. He is also a project lead at the Resilience Shift, where he has led the Resilience for Ports initiative, working with the global ports industry to shape a framework for a whole system approach to future challenges. Welcome, Mark, and thank you so much for accompanying us today. Now, our second speaker is Tim Morris, our Senior Engineer of Intelligent Mobility in Arup. Tim is part of Arup's Smart Mobility and Intelligent Transport Systems team in the UK. He is passionate about developing innovative next-generation sustainable transport services. He chairs the ITS UK Maritime Forum, whose aim is to foster collaboration between the ITS and maritime communities to promote the application of technology on providing a safe, clean, sustainable, and efficient maritime operations. Team believes in a systemic approach to strengthening the resilience interfaces within the port and logistics environments is crucial to ensure their sustainable and efficient operation, whilst working to meet net zero goals. Team has applied this approach on a recent project to provide technology solutions on a major highway interface to key port in the UK. Welcome, team, and thank you so much for accompanying us today.
Thanks, Mariana. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. And now our third speaker, with me, Thivash Moodley, our founder. He is trained as an aeronautical engineer and project manager and gained over 22 years in engineering, management, and leadership experience in the maritime, education, road transport, aerospace, and logistic industries. He began offering aerospace and defense consultancy services to BAE Systems, Saab Aerospace, and Denel Aerosystems. In 2008, he partnered with industry and academia experts to develop specialization in modeling and simulation solutions for product development and interactive training systems. Then in 2012, he made a bold move to develop simulation-based products for a driver training industry, patented an interactive driver education system called IDES, and also developed simulators for the maritime training industry. Today, he has driven TMI Simulation Solutions to develop engineering, simulation, and interactive training solutions for a variety of clients, both nationally and internationally. Welcome, Thivash, and thank you for joining. Now, before we begin, I would like to request our audience to share their questions on the chat, as well as to congratulate our guests for such an exceptional career path. Please make sure that you share your contact details through our chat for us to share more information about Arup and TMI, training and consulting services. And now I hand over the microphone to you, Mr. Moodley, to open the topic of intelligent port ecosystems and port resilience.
Thank you, Mariana, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I think more so because we're working with a very good company, Arup Consulting Engineers, who've really done great work in the maritime as well as the intermodal transport industry. But how did we come to this position? You know, TMI Simulation Solutions, with 15 years simulation and training experience in the aerospace, maritime, logistics, and edutainment industries, has taken several design and development projects across the globe. We have supported projects in the port and intermodal terminal development in the Southern African Development Region. During these projects, our drivers were related to schedule, cost, and performance, and not what is important today to sustain and protect our planet. And we've seen this, that today, port and terminal infrastructure design must now focus on decarbonization, climate change, biofuels to ensure sustainable development and a port for the future. Meeting sustainable development goals requires actions such as harnessing and maximizing the potential of technology and innovation. We believe the maritime team at Arup are at the forefront of designing and developing port and terminal infrastructure to achieve these goals. And that's why we have the honor and privilege to share these expertise with our fellow colleagues in developing countries. I would like to also assure our colleagues in the developing countries that Arup's know-how on how to achieve this is commendable. And this will be showcased to you through the presentation that you will just see in a little while. But I'd like to just touch base on decarbonization, marine pollution, and biofueling, which are some of the challenges faced by our port industries. But technological innovation aims to support green technologies. And one question is always highlighted when talking about green technologies and innovation is that while some innovations can be fostered through existing private and public mechanisms, sometimes these technologies are either not developed nor implemented due to the lack of the profitability of operation, and if developed, are not accessible or well adapted to the end user's needs due to infrastructure challenges in the environment. However, with the advancements in digital technologies, as Mariana mentioned, automation, robotics, advanced sensing systems, and high-speed internet connectivity, our ports now have a chance to change the way they operate forever. And with this, we can digitally transform and create a sustainable port model. In TMI, we believe that in order to give access to developing countries, partnerships are key. And that's why we partnered with Arup to bring this information to the fore, so that countries who have challenges with trying to conceptualize and conceive ideas on how to transform now have people that they can talk to and deal with. And that's the intention and the purpose of this webinar today. For us, the journey of innovation for sustainable development begins with adopting a corporate social responsibility into your business model, as this influences the design of operation and the management of maritime systems to ensure that it's efficient, productive, as well as you achieve your business objectives. Efficiency and low cost of transporting cargo by sea has been established that the maritime transport industry is the dominant carrier of world trade, equivalent to almost 90% of goods being carried by the sea. Despite this, the market share due to the inefficiencies of seaborne transport generates huge negative impacts on the environment through CO2 emissions and accidental or operational marine pollution, which is an eyesore to the world. And it's not something that we all want to see and read about. Therefore, the reduction of CO2 emissions, along with energy efficiency measures and protection of life at sea, has been thoroughly placed at the forefront of strategies and initiatives of organizations and other maritime stakeholders. Without further ado, I'd like to hand back to Mariana so she can pass over to our colleagues at ANA.
Thank you. Now we'll go with Mark, please.
Great. Hi, everyone. Really great to join today, and thanks for that really interesting introduction. So as Mariana said earlier, I'm Mark Button, Senior Engineer at Arup, the Built Environment Consultancy, where I focus on decarbonisation and resilience for ports and coastal projects. I'm also a project lead at the Resilience Shift. So the Resilience Shift are a global hub for resilience best practice, linking with a network of members, partners and collaborators. So we act as a think tank, a grant-making body, and also a convening network, and we work to enable a resilient future for our critical infrastructure systems. So really today I wanted to set the scene for the session by sharing quite a short summary of our Resilience for Ports project, which demonstrates the key role for technology within a future port ecosystem. So the Resilience for Ports initiative is a whole systems approach to enhance the resilience of ports. It's a multi-partner, not-for-profit initiative that built on some of our previous work that focused on ports, including a ports and logistics roundtable from International Shipping Week a few years ago. So we started this project back in July 2020, published our main report earlier this year, and we're now working with a series of other partners and networks in this space to shape plans for the future. A really important starting point, if you speak to 10 people and ask them what you mean by resilience, you'll probably get 10 slightly different answers. So, for us, we're talking about ports being able to withstand and adapt to changing conditions, to recover positively from shocks and stresses, and therefore provide essential services both now and into the future. So there's really two key drivers to why we wanted to focus on port resilience. So first, which will be familiar to many people on the call today, is recognizing that ports as a nexus in multiple critical infrastructure systems are absolutely critical to flourishing of society and to the economy at large. So over in the UK, it was kind of front page news, over the last 2 years that we've had bookshops running out of books. We've had pauses to car manufacturing, all linked to congestion in a few ports, linked to COVID and Brexit changes. So as the world becomes more complex, more connected, we think there's a real risk we're going to see more stories like this unless we come together and act soon. So the second aspect really is that we've recognised that ports are currently facing multiple transformations. So decarbonisation, the fourth industrial revolution, an increasing onus to be both socially and environmentally sustainable, and of course preparing for an already changing climate. So really we think that resilience is a lens that can bring these different challenges together and focus attention on port performance as well as the outcomes of the wider transformations. So just to cover a few key aspects of how we looked at this. So during our scoping study for this project, we've undertaken research and analysis to understand and describe ports as a hub of systems, which this image starts to communicate. So resilience really needs a whole system and not just individual assets to function. And a port is, of course, a complex system of interconnected elements, itself in an array of external systems. So really important to think about how ports are connected on both the ocean and land side, and how critical these connections are to resilience too. So when we think about the elements that make up a port, it's really critical we think about the physical assets, but also the wider social, environmental, political, and economic features. A port's resilience is deeply connected to the communities that it's part of, as well as the natural ecosystems, as much as its physical assets. And how these elements relate to each other is also really critical. So these interdependencies derive from the rules, the norms and procedures we have in ports, as well as the flows of data, freight, energy, and people. So really quite a dynamic picture we need to think of. We also kind of took a step back to consider the actually quite broad array of functions a port can perform, thinking about the different roles across critical infrastructure systems, and really, recognizing how much broader this is than just moving freight and people from water to land. We recognize that very few organizations have the remit to take this whole system view, and that boundaries are often there for a good reason. But we think by bringing together the whole value chain from across the port system, and by demonstrating resilience value to everyone, not just end users, we can realize the change we need to see. So after describing ports as this hub of systems, we've thought about what are the resilience challenges that ports currently face, and those that they may experience in the future. So these shocks and stresses are short-term events or long-term pressures that could affect the functionality of a port. So for example, this image shows a range of current challenges, including those related to, for example, hinterland connectivity, to do with fragmented governance of ports, or to do with emerging cybersecurity risks. Really importantly, we also consider a wide range of drivers for the future, or drivers for change that will affect resilience in the future. We tended to group these into those to do with port communities and environment, those to do with decarbonisation, and also technology and digital. So for technology and digital, we explored a range of trends and developments linked to ports, from vessel automation to augmented reality and the use of 5G networks. As was alluded to earlier in the presentation, it's really clear that the fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and that the rate of change in this space has never been so rapid. So for ports, this means things like gathering data at greater frequency and more cheaply, with large data sets from sensors offshore, on vessels and linked to ports, giving us the ability to provide a real-time understanding of the environment, of equipment status and operating conditions, with the opportunity for value in port planning, design, operation and maintenance. But thinking back to the whole system of ports, technology also has a key role in bringing together people, in managing ports' impact on the environment, and even how financial transactions take place. So the main part of our project has been that through a series of workshops and using the framing that I've just run through, we worked with the whole port value chain. So from port financiers through to port cities, port authorities and port operators, technology providers, energy companies, shipping consultants. So worked with this really diverse group to understand what the collective view is on the challenges and opportunities ahead of us, and what type of cross-industry actions are needed to enhance resilience. So just to give you a little snippet of what we heard in particular on the technology and digital space. So first of all, we heard about some key opportunities to enhance resilience. For example, using technology to map and quantify resilience benefits beyond the port. So start to think about the influence of ports on wider supply chains. We heard about the opportunity to use data for predictive maintenance and root cause analysis, so to play a key role in port asset management. And really interestingly, we heard about some opportunities for technology to reduce hazards to humans through automated processes. So as well as these opportunities to enhance resilience, we did hear about potential new vulnerabilities that could come about through technology. And this give a focus on the need to think about the human elements of the digital transformation and bring people along on the journey as well. We heard about risks of over-reliance on sophisticated risk models, and really we noted the need to manage deep uncertainty and not just future risks that are known. We also heard about the increased fragmentation in new tools and data sets and possible ways to bridge this. So linked to those challenges and opportunities, we heard a wide range of ideas on actions. And really, we distilled this into one of our key recommendations, which was the need to have digital platforms which can map the whole system of ports, bring together stakeholders, and then together shape the resilience of that system to future challenges. So I've run through that in quite an abridged version of this study we've done that I hope sets the scene for a fruitful conversation today on the role of technology in port resilience. You can find much more detail on this in our report, which was published this year and is available online. And that includes the 4 main action areas we've explored in that. But please get in touch if you'd like any further information or to talk about collaboration during the next stage. Thanks very much. And I'll hand over to my colleague Tim, who's going to take this into a bit further detail.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to TMI for the opportunity today to collaborate on this webinar. So I'm Tim Morris, Intelligent Mobility Engineer with Arup, and I'd like to sort of pick up and sort of continue the discussion from what Mark was talking about just now about resilience in ports, to talk a little bit more about specifically around technology and how technology can impact on resilience and sustainability, and thinking about ports as intelligent mobility ecosystems, and how that can help create a more resilient and sustainable environment for the ports industry. So I'm sort of thinking about some of the key considerations around the application of strategies around that, sort of irrespective of port models, but sort of aligned with some of the thoughts for resilience that came out of the work undertaken by the Resilience Shift that Mark referred to in his presentation earlier. So as has been highlighted, that there's currently big issues in the maritime industry in terms of shocks to the supply chain, big challenges around resilience. There's been issues with supplies globally, particularly for the sort of automobile and semiconductor industries, and obviously a massive impact in terms of demand, consumer demand, and the demand on shipping that was experienced during the pandemic, and we're sort of seeing the continual impact of that now with the sort of World Trade Organization now saying that those disruptions in the supply chain are really dampening growth and sort of impacting globally on the potential to sort of bounce back from the pandemic. So thinking about ports as an intelligent transport ecosystem or intelligent mobility ecosystem, and we've sort of thought about this in terms of the holistic value that the interventions can build and help to build resilience, is to apply systems thinking processes and kind of thinking of the port and its immediate environments as a system of systems. And that means not just integrating across the technological processes, but also integrating across the people processes, as Mark kind of alluded to. Bringing people along on the journey is kind of a big part of that if you want those technological interventions and improvements to be a success. And I suppose systems thinking is kind of more commonly thought about in terms of other modes of transport, particularly sort of aviation and rail and military systems. But I think there's kind of some real similarities between some of the processes, critical processes, time critical and safety critical processes and procedures that go on in the maritime and port sector that lend themselves well to that kind of thinking, systems thinking, and thinking in terms of the port and its connected services as a system of systems. And that expands, as I say, to not just the port itself, but thinking outside the port as well. Thinking about energy and the management of energy within transportation and operations within the port and outside of the port, both on the ocean side and on the land side, and also linking that into some of the processes that maybe are currently not as optimized as they could be around consignment documents, loading and unloading of cargo, and thinking about those in the context of political, economic, social, technological, legal or legislative and economic factors. And really it's important to remember as a kind of underpin in terms of the human aspects, the technologies are, so technological and digital solutions are just the enablers, and it's really important to sort of construct and nourish the creation of a successful port community system to enable some of these technological advancements to develop and flourish. And that's as much a kind of change management project as it is just purely a technology implementation project. So yeah, can't sort of understate the importance of sort of ensuring that port community system is kind of strong and well cohesive. So there's a kind of wealth of digital solutions that are available today, and I suppose from the shipping and ports perspective, that there's maybe not a full appreciation of the sort of direct value or the return on investment that those can bring, and sort of start to address resource efficiencies in their operations. And Arup are really passionate about working with strategic partners to play a role in sort of changing the tide around that and helping the shipping and logistics industry understand the benefits of deploying technology and digital solutions to improve the port and logistics environments. But also just highlighting that it's not, about deploying technology for technology's sake, and that we really need to understand in the first instance the interconnections within the port and the port's operations and its connections to the wider environment, and the intended outcomes that the port is looking to achieve, so that technology can be sort of adapted and tailored to meet those intended outcomes. So just moving on to think a little bit more outside the direct context of the port environment itself. So as we know, the goods journey doesn't sort of start and finish within the port itself. So there's many sort of services, operations, people, and communities that link to the activities going on in the port itself, and that just kind of highlights, I think, what Mark was talking about earlier about the need to employ systemic solutions, which can then be improved in terms of technological and IT terms. But primarily those solutions, systemic solutions, should look to integrate across the business operations, or look to integrate the business operators across the sector, and then sort of as a kind of secondary intervention, look at how individual functions and processes can be improved as part of those technological advances. Another key consideration in sort of looking at the interfaces that are displayed on the screen here is around the importance of the customer or the end user, and maybe in the shipment of goods and freight and sort of consumer parcel deliveries, which has been highlighted over the last 18 months, I guess, with the global situation, it is that the customer doesn't always see, or the end user doesn't always see what that cargo or that package, the goods that they've ordered, the journey has had to go along, because they're not fully immersed in it in the same way as they are perhaps on other modal transport journeys, whether it be a flight, a rail journey, or a car journey, whatever it may be. They don't have full visibility in the same way, and I guess that to an extent means that the freight journey isn't as transparent, is not as visible, and there's maybe not the same level of understanding of the impacts that can be had in terms of environmental sustainability and resilience. And I think maybe the sort of consumer and end user is becoming more aware of that, sort of through the advent of digital apps and e-commerce and things. But really, I think to make the most advantage of the opportunity we've got, I guess, to drive forward and improve resilience and sustainability for ports and the shipping sector is sort of to communicate with the consumer or end user a little bit more, to understand, so that they're able to understand some of those processes and maybe start to help them to think about how their actions and they can take responsibility for helping create a shift in sustainable practices for the logistics and ports sectors as well. But I think another problem with the kind of interfaces and the interconnectivity between interfaces at the moment, so you've kind of heard already how important that interconnectivity is. But I think that there's a fragmented nature at the moment, both in terms of port governance and the approach to multiple transformative agendas in terms of automation, digitalisation, and decarbonisation. And I guess it's really important that the kind of lack of current commonality in standards to drive forward those agendas doesn't become a sort of barrier to wide-scale deployment of interoperable systems. Consensus on standards are obviously key to that for successful implementation of solutions such as autonomous shipping, and the autonomous shipping standards and protocols can't just end where the sort of ship meets its berthing terminal or the wharf. There needs to be interoperable protocols and standards to enable the benefits of that autonomous shipping on the ocean side to be seen within the port processes as well, and then onto the sort of hinterland journey and the connectivity to the hinterland or urban area. Ports have got a big opportunity to act as energy hubs, particularly in the sort of instance shown on the screen here, the urban environment connected to the port in terms of port cities, and the opportunity that ports could play a major role within those communities in the development and production of renewable energy and renewable energy facilities, and that could be a key opportunity in terms of technology for them to aid resilience and sustainability in the future as well. So just thinking a little bit more about those intelligent hinterland operations, and just wanted to sort of highlight some of the key themes here really, and underpin how technology can sort of help drive those forward and deliver those. So I think the value of connected and integrated data services can't be understated. I kind of suggested already that there's a lack of commonality or the existence of fragmented governance around standards and protocols that are needed to facilitate a fully connected and integrated data environment. So key to kind of overcome that, to enable then the synchronized and optimized port and hinterland freight movements, so they've got visibility of end-to-end movements in the supply chain and operations for the different services and suppliers within that supply chain. And that visibility then can go a long way to unlocking congestion within the ports and into and out of the ports as well. And I think there's a big opportunity for technology, intelligent transport systems technology, but also digital solutions, sort of underpinned by artificial intelligence and machine learning more broadly, to enable the sustainable growth of e-commerce logistics, and sort of remove some of the bottlenecks and the issues that we're seeing today, and we have seen over the past year or 18 months. And the other benefit, I suppose, of sort of deploying those solutions is that they can also help ports and freight industry achieve its decarbonisation goals by providing efficiencies and optimization, and sort of opportunities to operate things in a more green and environmentally friendly way. And that will really help them to sort of reduce their carbon footprint, minimise delays, and build a greater degree of reliability into the journey as well. Thinking about the port community and sort of linking that back again to the importance, it's not just all about the technology, but it's really key, I suppose, that the message about sort of bringing that port community together to foster the collaboration, and that, in the first instance, which is key to driving the innovation in operational processes that community has the intimate knowledge of. So just wanted to move on to talk a little bit about some strategies for embedding resilience in port ecosystems. And this is sort of I've sort of aligned this to some insights, 10 insights that came out of the resilience shift work that Mark set out earlier, and sort of look to sort of suggest how the ports and shipping industry could adopt approaches to technology deployment strategy that are cognizant of those kind of insights for resilience that hopefully sort of help aid and abet the improvement in resilience and sustainability as well. So sort of in terms of key drivers for innovation and technology, is that agenda around decarbonisation, automation and digitalisation is key, but equally it's about thinking holistically, as we kind of said, thinking about a whole systems approach, and thinking about seamless interfaces, it says there, and cooperation between process-based digital systems, but also being aware and recognising the importance of connecting the human and operational aspects in the port as well. There's no point sort of deploying these technology systems if people aren't prepared to use them, or there's not connection to other processes and operations in the port, and the kind of value is isolated and very much diminished then. And in terms of the outcomes, as I say, focusing on resilience and sustainable operations is not just about the physical infrastructure, but the organizational infrastructure and sort of the human and natural environment as well, and the importance of integrating all those systems, and it's connecting the port as a system of systems, if you like. And I think key to sort of creating this, again, to reiterate the importance of creating a collaborative environment across the shipping and supply chain, where partners can sort of work together to develop innovative solutions to optimize operations, and planning is obviously key to facilitating and enabling that implementation and operation. Just moving on to a couple of other insights and potential strategies. So highlighted earlier, fragmented governance, obviously a big problem, and collaboration can be a big facilitator to overcoming that. But from a technology perspective, some of the inputs and strategies around that would be the opportunity to sort of make more informed decisions that can be derived from the sharing of accurate data. So you need to overcome that fragmented governance to enable that seamless sharing of data and interoperability of it in the first instance. So that's where the greater collaboration and coordination comes in again, between the port and its suppliers and associated organisations, and the two really go hand in hand. I guess is what I'm trying to highlight, that you can't have sort of dissemination of fragmented governance and overcome that without greater collaboration between the different actors in the supply value chain. Managing deep uncertainty, we've kind of highlighted already, a lot of the shocks and stresses that the maritime and port sector has experienced, particularly in the past 12 or 18 months, and opportunity again for technology to really help here in developing predictive strategies, using some of that location intelligence talked about earlier to help provide early warning or advanced warning of threats to resilience based on those AI and ML insights, and sort of gives the opportunity to be able to manage that at a more advanced stage. Better forewarned of it, then you've got better opportunity to prepare and to be able to deal with that, with the resulting issues. Thinking a little bit more about the whole value chain and similar themes again, about the importance of ensuring that everyone's brought along on the journey to provide the maximum opportunity to increase resilience for every part of the value chain, both within, into and out of the port. And again, that technology and the simulation systems can really help in sort of understanding what's happening in real time and visualizing that and sort of running predictive modeling around that, to understand what and when interventions can be made to provide the sort of best opportunity to optimize and the best opportunity to capitalize on efficiencies from that for multiple stakeholders across the value chain. And to say as well that outcome-led approaches are sort of key to this. That I started by talking about the importance of understanding what the intended outcomes are for the ports and the different people associated within the supply chain. And early engagement can't really be understated, I guess, in ensuring that technology-based solutions are aligned to the improvement objectives of the port, and that the application of technology can look at the opportunity to improve energy transition and the uptake of renewable energy supplies as well. Sort of thinking back to ports acting as energy hubs and the opportunity they've got there to really fuel that market in renewable energy sources. Couple of more strategy considerations around port community systems again, and I think we've kind of spoken already about the importance of that interoperability between owners, operators and users, but not only to facilitate greater optimization and efficiencies, but also for improved safety and reduced risk, which are obviously massive within the ports and maritime industry, and really key to consider how we might improve that as well, just linking it back again to the sort of human aspects of the systemic thinking model. And in terms of demonstrating the benefits of resilience, I think Mark picked up on as well that technological developments, the shift to digitalisation obviously opens up vulnerabilities in itself for increased risk to cybersecurity attacks. So it's really key to think about strategies for addressing those vulnerabilities as part of a holistic thinking of how the port moves forward to digitalisation and automation processes and practices in future. The final couple of considerations we've got here are just around transferring knowledge widely, and to keep kind of spoken about standards and interoperability and sort of joining everyone up in the value chain. And there's obviously some major ports leading on the digitalisation journey globally at the moment, and I guess it's really key that knowledge and information is shared throughout the industry to enable everyone to sort of compete on a level playing field and realise the benefits of those digitalisation and automation improvements, so that the value globally, shipping is a global business, and I think it's important that the benefits are also global in terms of increasing resilience and sustainability. And industry bodies really have a key role to play in that, I guess, in terms of creating those common standards in collaboration with ports for data sharing and exchange of real-time information. And I know there's a lot of work going on in the industry from different bodies at the moment around standards for port call optimization and just-in-time arrival. But I think probably the key thing is that those bodies are sort of integrating and liaising with each other as well, so that technological solutions can be developed wherever in the globe, and still sort of communicate with systems and solutions on the other side of the world. And the last, just to highlight, just finishing on a resilience note and becoming safer and more sustainable. As an industry, and Mark kind of touched on the need for digital platforms to enable a lot of the improvements that we're sort of talking about in these themes. And I think I just wanted to sort of highlight again that it's sort of key to have a kind of common roadmap, I guess, in thinking back to that sharing of knowledge and information again, so that everyone can sort of help reach and achieve those solutions to reach zero emission targets in the shortest time possible. And Arup are really keen to partner and work with clients to help them achieve those ambitions and those goals. You know, we work across the built environment sector, and we've got experience in maritime infrastructure, transport planning, and digital expertise that can really help ports and the shipping industry enhance resilience and embed those sustainable practices. So that's the end of my slides. Thanks very much for your time and for listening, and I will hand back to Mariana.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we would go now to our Q&A. I think this is the most important part because we can interact with the audience and questions. So I'll open now with the first question. Somebody's asking about the membership, or how can one become a member of the Resilience for Port Association? I think you mentioned this was an initiative, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the Resilience Reports project is an initiative working with a range of partners. So not an association as such, but we're always keen to speak to potential collaborators. I should also mention that we're a partner of a partnership called Navigating a Changing Climate, who work on climate change mitigation and adaptation for the waterborne transport sector more broadly. And there's options to join that group as a supporter. But if you're interested in collaborating on resilience reports, please get in touch. And like I said, there's more information available on our webpage and in our recent report.
Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, we'll go through the second question. Can you share with us one or two successful strategies for resilient environment or engineering that Arup has implemented? I don't know if Mark or Tim, who would you like, or both?
So the question was around resilient strategies and then technologies, was it? Sorry, I just missed the second part.
Okay, so it says, can you share with us one or two successful strategies for resilient environment or engineering that has been implemented by Arup?
Tim, do you want to do one and I'll do one?
Yes, so I can do one from the intelligent mobility perspective, I guess. And I was kind of talking in the presentation about the importance of collaborating. And I think, you know, in terms of we're all about innovating, but to enable that innovation, I think collaboration is key. And we've really tried to engage on projects globally with clients around connected autonomous vehicles and zero emission mobility. To sort of help those clients understand some of the challenges around the deployment of those autonomous vehicles and sort of how they can achieve zero emission vehicles traveling on the highways, but obviously it's not specifically about a highways context. And I suppose that just to highlight that we've done extensive research and development around that and the sort of modelling of those low and zero emission technologies and how they can sort of really go towards achieving a net zero economy for transport more broadly. And obviously keen to help port and shipping clients understand how that can benefit them as well. I suppose just wanted to highlight that, you know, we're well placed to be able to work together with port and shipping clients and strategic partners such as TMI to help them sort of advance their progression on digitalisation and automation journeys and enhance resilience and sustainability along the way.
Great. I can give another example if that's helpful, Mariana.
Yes, please.
So a really interesting recent port resilience project we've worked on. We're working with two major multilateral finance institutions who are looking to fund major new port development. It's a confidential project, but in Europe. So we worked with the lenders to look at the range of climate impacts that the ports would be subject to, from sea level rise, increased storminess, increased heat that could affect the workers as well as equipment. And we applied this kind of whole systems approach to map the port, its different interdependencies with local energy companies, with local transport links, and think about how all of these climate impacts could affect the port. And then we shaped mitigation measures for how some of these risks could be managed, both thinking in terms of adaptation of infrastructure, changes to operations, but also the broader kind of approach or institutional strategy for the port. So that was a really good project where we're thinking about specifically about climate risks, but able to bring in this whole systems framework to make sure we're thinking broadly enough about where those risks might be felt and how the port might adapt to them. So a really interesting recent project.
Thank you so much, Mark and Tim. That was really interesting. I would like to go to the third question that I have here. It's a long question. It says, sometimes technologies are either not developed at all for lack of sufficient profitable market, or if developed are not accessible or well adapted to end user needs. So if we were able to offer guidance on how to reach technological innovation through partnership models for all those ports that wish to go through a digitalization journey, what would be your guidance?
Well, I can offer a start on that if you like, Mariana. So for me, I think I kind of highlighted in the presentation that you know, we shouldn't just be thinking about deploying technology for technology's sake. It's really all about sort of collaborating with partners and with the clients that we're working with in the port sector to understand what the outcomes what outcomes they're looking to achieve, what their objectives are, and then sort of working back from that to understand the requirements for the technological solutions that can enable and facilitate those outcomes. So for me, it's not, you know, it's for the technology to be successful and the technology solutions to be successful, we first need to have a deep understanding of the intended outcomes and desired objectives, and then work back from that, and then hopefully that will ensure that the development of the technology is steered in a direction that will facilitate those outcomes.
Understood. Thank you. Mark, would you like to share also your opinion or your guidance?
Yeah, I think I'd just add to that often the benefits from investments into port resilience can benefit from looking at the total value that they'll deliver. So as well as the kind of short-term financial value, thinking more deeply about what's the social value that could come from these investments, either within the port or more broadly, what's the environmental value, or even broader economic beyond the wider financial value, and then think about what are the options for leveraging that value. So can you bring in different stakeholders who might have an interest in some of those broader parts of the value that's delivered? Is there any way they can help co-fund projects? So that brings in this topic of partnership models, bringing together a broad range of stakeholders, thinking more broadly about the value that's delivered within and outside the port. And using that approach, we've often found can make a much stronger case for projects that maybe at first didn't seem like they had a narrow business case. There's an Arup publication on a total value case for infrastructure, which tells this story quite well. So happy to share that with anyone who's interested.
Very well, I see. Thank you so much, Mark. Now, Mr. Moodley, would you like to?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is people think that digital transformation is really far-reaching and requires large initial investments and capex upfront. But if you use a model-based approach through simulation, you can strategically phase in your activities as well as your infrastructure capex cost, and slowly see how you can return on your investment before you keep expanding. And that's the beauty of using simulation and model-based simulation from a very early stages of it. From your idea creation to your concept design through to your preliminary design, and during your construction and development phase, you keep modeling and improving your operational models to ensure that you can continuously achieve the adequate return on investment when you want to digitize and go green. I think that's important, that some people are not yet familiar with the concept of the benefits of simulation in this.
Very true, very true. Okay, so just because we have a time constraint, I would like us to go on with the takeaways of the session, which each one of you would say. But for the audience, I would like to say that if you have any more questions, suggestions, doubts, you want to also reach out to Arup to share their presentations or any other information, please share your contact details with us. We will display our contact details at the end of the session. Okay, so I wanted to ask Tim, can you give us please your takeaway of the session?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mariana. I mean, I guess for me, again, just to highlight, in terms of a takeaway, it's the kind of importance in communicating and speaking, to our port clients and understanding their needs a little bit more holistically, so that we can kind of work with them and develop the partnerships and the relationships that are needed to sort of facilitate some of the technological improvements that we've been talking about, whether it be the sort of simulation solutions that Vash is talking about, to complement really a systemic deployment of digitalisation solutions and sort of achievement of an automation journey that can go a long way to improving resilience and sustainability for the ports and maritime sectors.
Yes, thank you, Tim. And now, Thivash, I don't know if you want to.
Okay, I think this is an important opportunity for me to basically reflect on my history in both the aerospace and maritime industry. And towards the late 90s, we saw a massive migration towards moving freight from the maritime sector to the aerospace sector. And aerospace companies started building larger aircraft for handling freight, carrying freight. Terminal operators in airports were upgrading their facilities and stuff, and they're upgrading their facilities to digitize them and make this as efficient as possible. But with the rising costs of fuel, pollution surrounded in the aerospace industry, as well as just congestion in airports, airports have not been prioritized for passenger transportation, and the freights remain, and the freight part of the business remained in the maritime sector. And so for many years, the maritime sector never transformed, never innovated to get better and more efficient, because they always feared the aerospace industry was going to take a large part of the business. But unfortunately, or fortunately for the maritime industry, that never really happened. due to the complexities in air freight and moving with air freight, and especially your large break bulk commodities and large commodities, it's still far more efficient to move it on sea. And hence, now is the time for a lot of our ports to realize the benefit and the potential of upgrading and improving their efficiencies to ensure that they can capitalize on the growth in the maritime sector for moving break bulk, liquid bulk, as well as containerized freight, because the opportunities and the market is just growing so fast, and globalization is just getting so much. It's evolving on a daily basis, and especially with technology in communication, the maritime sector must not be left behind. And I think the ports need to understand that if they can handle capacity, they would get the business in the port. And that's my takeaway to the South African or the Southern African port environment.
Okay, so thank you a lot to everybody, to Tim, to Mark, and Thivash for sharing your experience. You are really motivating and also inspirational and a great model. I would like for our audience to make sure you stay in touch with us and write the contact details that we will display in a moment, so we can offer more support in training and consultancy. And on behalf of the TMI Simulation Solutions team that is behind the cameras and our guest speakers, we thank you for joining our webinar series. And we have a very exciting announcement because next week we will have our product launch. So we're very excited and looking forward for that. So we would like to invite you. We will share more details in our LinkedIn page and also in our website, tmisim.com. So join us next week, and thank you and goodbye.
Ciao.
Thanks everyone.